This was a season of contrasts. While some climbers rushed to the summit in record time, others were begging for their lives to be saved. In the chaos of Everest 2025, one man did the unthinkable. Ashok Lama risked his own life to save a woman. Another man, Andrew Ushakov, climbed to the summit from New York in under 4 days. In this video, we're going to meet Ashok Lama, the hero, the IFMGA guide, climbing with 8K expeditions, who, among other things, was one of the leaders who fixed the ropes to the summit at the beginning of the season. He saved a woman's life, his client, who refused to turn around. This is certainly something that we'll expand upon in this video with my conversation with Ashok, and also some of my conversation with Andrew Ushakov, the American who climbed to the summit from New York in just under 4 days. Absolutely remarkable. And at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you the big takeaway from the 2025 Everest season, if we've learned anything, what that is. So let's get down to it. The season ended a little bit early this year on the 29th of May. The Khumbu icefall was literally melting out, and it was almost impossible for the icefall doctors to keep the ladders in place, or the ice screws or pickets from melting out, so they closed the icefall. Also, the number of summits, given that there were almost 450 permits issued with a potential 1,000 going for the summit, 600 did make it to the top. However, that is a fairly high percentage of people not making it. Alan Arnett, on his blog on alanarnett.com, lists his summits of over 600 people reaching the top, said 300 were members or clients supported by 320 Sherpa or support climbers, high altitude guides, if you will, or support climbers. While the death toll on Everest was relatively low, as in previous seasons, 5, that's still 5 human beings who leave behind 5 families and friend networks that are mourning right now, and still very likely in shock from the loss of their loved one. Of those 5 deaths, 3 of them were climbing Sherpas, and so it shows you that the Sherpa or high altitude workers are still taking on a greater percentage of those lost in the mountains. This really shines a light on my interview with Ashok Lama, who in this interview, as you'll see, talked about the woman that he was guiding and ultimately saved the life of, refused to turn around when he asked her to. He implored her to, and she refused to turn around. He's a guide for 8K expeditions, and he was in the group that fixed the ropes from Camp 2 all the way to the summit. So literally, he was one of the first, if not the first person to get to the summit this year. I learned more about Ashok Lama's incredible rescue of this Indian woman in Everest Chronicle, which did a feature on him and explained how she basically lay down to die on her way up to Camp 4 from Camp 3, and there's an area halfway between called the Yellow Band, and she refused to move, and he was in no position but to drag her down, which he did, and he saved her life. Let's cut to that very powerful interview with Ashok Lama from Kathmandu. Ashok, tell me about this rescue. And the article in Everest Chronicle was beautiful, and I'm glad that they put a spotlight on you, because there's so many other things in the news. It's good to focus on somebody saving a life. And could you tell me about what happened that day? I'd love to hear the story.
She was my client actually, and this year I was the leader of rope fixing team on Everest and Lhotse. And after I completing my fixing work, and I had client again to go back to Everest. So I took my client. So, but the problem was she was physically not fit enough. But the problem of big mountains, money works everywhere. So she paid a lot of money, and so a company agreed her to make a climbable situation for her. So she was very slow, kind of, in terms of fitness and all the climbing techniques. We from base camp to camp one. Normally, when we go for the summit push, we go direct to camp two from base camp, and normally, and she couldn't make it happen. So we stayed at camp one. It was very long time. It took it's almost 18 hours of time. It took to reach camp one, and from camp one to camp two, it's almost it took 10 hours. So normally people do it in without within 12 to 14 hours. People normal average climbers do it in camp two. So it was a lot of time for her, and then I request her not to go up. It's very risky to go up, and you cannot manage to make it to summit. But she didn't listen to me, and she just said, "I just want to go up." And so she took a rest at Camp 2 for 3 days. And after 3 days, we went to Camp 3. And this also took very long time. And from Camp 3 to on the way to go to Camp 4, our plan is to stay at Camp 4. Let's say Camp 4, because I knew she will not make it to Everest Camp 4. So we start around 7 a.m. in the morning from Camp 3. And it took a whole day to reach the yellow band below Lotse camp. It was almost evening of 4 p.m. at Camp 4, yellow band. So, and the weather was also very bad. And it was windy, snowing. The powdery snow was whole day there in the way. So I decided how to turn back down. And she was also unable to walk anymore. And she was very fatigued. And then she just gave up on her body. She couldn't walk anymore. And then so I started putting her down from yellow band. And we reached at Camp 2 around 2:30 in the morning. And then next day I put her on the helicopter to the base camp, and then I walked down the base camp. That's all, nothing more.
That's all. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work. This seems to happen a lot, is that people down low with no mountaineering experience, or at least high altitude experience, think in their head or their heart, like, no, I'm not turning around. And they don't listen to the experienced high altitude Sherpa or the guide. And they're like, no, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go. And it's a difficult position for you to be in, because you can't, like, you don't have the power to turn her around, I don't think, right? Like it's
Yeah.
so how is that happening a lot on the mountain now? It seems that it is.
Yes, yes, yes. In this matter, what I think is in terms of Everest, people, what I see, the people are like, they just don't come for climbing. They also want to be on the top of the world, even they don't know how to climb. And they pay a lot of money on this topic. And then they come, and then private companies. This is not run by government in Nepal, obviously. And in private companies, if they pay a lot of money, companies just accept them because there are so many companies. If one company doesn't accept them, and there is another company, obviously. So just somehow they come to there, and then company just promise, I will give you two Sherpas, three Sherpas, and you will make it. Don't worry. And then they invest a lot of money, and then they just chase some records or some dreams, and they don't even have basic knowledge of climbing, and then they suffer here. I don't know.
Do you think that things should change in the future? Like, people should be able to show that they have a 7,000 meter peak before getting a permit? Do you think that would fix that at all?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It will fix at some point, but in terms of current condition, the system, private companies accept the clients, and then government never sees them, and who will check? There is problem. Who will see the category? That's the main problem. And I think this has to come from people's own mindset. If you are going to Everest or some big mountains like 8,000, any big mountains, at least you should have basic knowledge of climbing. It should come from basic awareness, I guess. And this awareness will come from the people like the problems like nowadays happening. But if they see a lot of victims, a lot of casualties on mountains, I think the future climbers who are willing to come to big mountains, they will obviously aware themselves like I have to do something before I go there.
In having reached out to Ashok, he was very kind in immediately replying and saying yes, he'd love to do the interview. In that, I want to give a shout out to my friend Mike G from Musa Masala. Last year, Ashok was an MC at a climbing competition. That climbing competition was started by Musa Masala, and Mike has been deeply involved in it. Spoke very highly of Ashok and his great and warm personality. And at the age of 26 years old, I would imagine we're going to see a lot more from him in the future. Wishing him the very best and thanking him from the bottom of my heart for taking the time out of his day to share with us his dramatic story on Mount Everest. Be safe, my friend. Now let me take you to a part of my interview with Andrew Ushakov, who flew from New York and was on the summit of Mount Everest in just under 4 days. An absolutely magnificent accomplishment, not using xenon gas like the Mission Everest team did, but training for hundreds of hours with a hypoxic mask that replicated this feeling of high altitude. And the full interview, which is unedited, is on my podcast, The Happiness Quotient. I'll provide a link to that episode in the description of this video. Andrew was still in Kathmandu at his hotel. You can see it and hear it in his voice that he was still tired from his whirlwind journey to the top. This interview with Andrew is absolutely fantastic. Let's cut to that with him right now. Andrew, congratulations on an amazing feat. I am blown away. And I think the entire mountaineering community is wondering what just happened. That, especially since many people were following a different expedition going for some kind of record. And out of the blue, you sneak in and pull off something that nobody expected. If you could just explain to me a little bit about, let's start with the jubilation of making it, and then you can tell me a little bit about where this idea started in the first place.
Sure, sure. First of all, thank you for having me. And um, I started to think about this, let's call it this, like super fast ascent 2 years ago after Mount Denali in July 2023. I decided I would like to climb Everest, but the average expedition duration is 50 days. So, and I don't want to spend that much time apart from my son, from my family, and from my work. So I started to look for some other opportunities. I found like fast ascents, which were like 25 days, something like that, using the hypoxic tent. Then I found a project completed by Roxanne Vogel from California, who I believe in 2018 or 2019, she climbed Everest from California and back within 2 weeks. So I thought, okay, maybe this is what I want to do. And I tried to climb Everest last year in 2024 within that time and even a little faster, and almost climbed it in 6 days. But I lost my vision at the balcony. It's around 8,500 meters above the sea level, so just 300 vertical meters before the summit, and I had to turn back. And this year I decided to climb it in 4 or maximum 5 days. So it's like a long story, long project, way before any other projects were, present here.
Andrew, you know what I think is the most amazing thing about this, really, is that you defy what's happening currently in the world, and that there's so much media and PR around what people are trying to accomplish, and you were quiet about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It wasn't about the beating someone or someone else. Like it was about like beating yesterday. It was about beating my own attempt last year. And why I didn't talk about that? Because I don't know, it's in my nature. Like I want to, maybe I'm a little superstitious about that, but I want to, first to get things done, then talk about that. So for example, like last year when I tried to climb it in 6 days, there were no interviews, no podcasts, and then like no posts, nothing like that, because like I didn't make it. So for this year, I did the same. Like first I do, then I talk.
So could you walk me through this less than 4 day New York to the summit? Everything had to go right. You had done all the work, all
Yeah.
the preparation, and just a flight delay or a little bit of bad weather could have thrown this whole thing off. Seems like the stopwatch click started when the airplane took off of the tarmac in New York, and it was on. And can you tell me a little bit about that and up to the summit?
The logistics is something that worried me a lot because, yeah, like it was a taxi from my home to the airport, then by plane from New York to Istanbul, layover there from Istanbul to Kathmandu, then from Kathmandu to Lukla by helicopter, from Lukla to base camp by another helicopter. So like like 5 minutes of transportation and just one problem, and this is gone. And also, I was worried uh, that when we arrived to Lukla, one of my bags hadn't arrived, and I was really much worried that like some of my gear will not be present with me, and there was no chance for mistake. But luckily, after 2 hours with another helicopter with another group, they delivered my second bag. With the weather, it was another issue that I first expected to climb to summit maybe on May 20th, maybe it was a week before the summit. But then later I saw that in the mountain forecast that the weather is getting worse, so I need to go one day faster.
Oh,
But
gotcha. So then you're off from base camp, and then there were a lot of people there, and many of them were positioning themselves for their own summit bid. Um, and then of course you have the Khumbu ice fall, where if there's a weight at the bottom of a ladder, you have no choice. You're not going to free ice climb that I know of up to pass people. So you're at the mercy of all those conditions. How did that go? How, like the Khumbu ice fall, and did you just go right through Camp 2? Did you sleep there? How did that work out?
yeah, it's funny about sleep that that was one of the most complicated things for me because I didn't have any sleep during the 3 nights during my flight because of jet lag, and so I didn't sleep on the way from New York to base camp. Uh, I arrived, if we talk about hours, I arrived at the base camp on May 16 around noon, and at 9 p.m. Same day I started to move on through Khumbu Icefall. I arrived at Camp 2 around 9 a.m. and around 2 to 3 p.m. the same day on May 17th I moved to Camp 3 and arrived there at 9 p.m. So 24 hours after I started from base camp, I was in Camp 3. Then the next day I moved from Camp 3 to Camp 4, and the same night started my summit push. The problem was with sleep because the first time I got some sleep, and that was only 40 minutes. So in the whole trip from New York to the summit, I slept only 40 minutes, and that was on the border of a death zone in Camp 4, just because I was so super tired. Before that, I was unable to sleep because like small stops, a lot of stress, altitude, which of course I felt despite all the hypoxic preparation, blah blah blah. Like it doesn't go that much, and also like hypoxic preparation mostly works up to 6,000 meters. Above 6,000 meters doesn't work. So I was unacclimatized for that at all. Yeah, that was very hard, especially going from Camp 3 to Camp 4. I planned to go to do that in 8 hours, but finally I did it in 11 hours because last part I was super exhausted. I was feeling unwell and was in some places it took me 10 inhales per one step. So it wasn't very easy.
How did it feel, those last steps to the summit? What were you too tired to even feel celebratory, or did you feel the accomplishment, or has it even sunk in now?
To be honest, like the summit itself, I didn't celebrate. Like it was for me, like the project is to be completed when I go back to the sea level. So reaching the summit was like reaching another camp. Okay, just one more milestone. And especially I in the previous mountaineering experience of mine, I saw many times when people got into troubles during the descent. And I realized that because I don't have any real acclimatization, and because like I felt a little bit weak because of previous day, I realized a lot of risks are still ahead. So I didn't celebrate that at all. So was a technical thing. So we came like 15, 20 minutes for a few pictures, look around and moving back. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as we talk, I think I'm just yesterday I realized, okay, like the project is over because before that was too much stress, too much hectic things to do. Yeah. So probably the first thought was yesterday, 2 days after the project.
So wrapping up, looking forward to next season, as I have said many times on this channel in live streams and in videos, the government of Nepal, the onus is on them to create a stricter regulation in terms of who they are letting climb on the mountain. Now, if they want it to be a free-for-all and let anybody climb who has the bank book or the ability to pay an expedition company the money they need to be guided to the summit or try for the summit, then so be it. But to prevent the deaths and the many rescues that are inevitably going to happen every year, the government should institute some stricter regulations on a climber needing to show that he or she had prior high altitude experience that will make things a lot safer on the mountain. That remains to be seen whether that takes place or not. If you do enjoy videos like this, I ask if you will take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to hit like, share this video with someone who might enjoy it, and also consider becoming a member. I have a ton of exclusive content in the member section and over on Patreon at patreon.com/Everest Mystery. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, what is the big takeaway of the 2025 Everest season? Well, the mountain imposed its discipline where human systems did not necessarily prevail. Almost half the people who were going for the summit did not make it to the summit. Those are still pretty good odds for a mountain that 20 or 25 years ago had no guarantee of success. But again, as we see, the season was filled with a lot of climbers and clients who had very little experience on the mountain, leaving the work to the high altitude worker or the high altitude Sherpa to perform rescues and life-saving tactics in order to keep the number of deaths down on the mountain. Have we learned anything? Are we just getting lucky that the numbers and the casualties are down? And what happens in a year where the weather plays the good guy, giving everybody the opportunity to get to the summit? Will it make things better or potentially worse in the death zone, as happened with Ashok Lama and his client at over 7,500 meters in May? Make sure you leave a comment in the section below so we can find out what you think about Mount Everest in the 2025 season. In the meantime, do a good deed. Don't ask for anything in return. Make the world a better place, one tiny step at a time. Peace be with you.